Joining us here on Sports Spectrum today is Anthony Tolliver, Memphis Grizzlies basketball player, and obviously in the middle of this pandemic, he is joining us from his home in Texas. Anthony, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, Anthony. Good to have you on the show. What's this past month been like for you? We were talking before we started taping, and you said you've never been on the phone more in your life because we're all kind of, cooped up at the house. But what has this been like for you since everything came to a halt March 11th?
Honestly, it's been sounds a little crazy, but it's been a little refreshing.
Okay.
For me as a father, as a husband, to be able to spend this much time with my family has been a treat in a lot of different ways. We just have a new normal, right? We just got into a new routine and attacking every day with that, and actually having a lot of fun with it. Hoping for the best and praying for the best for what's going on. But just within our own bubble, we're just trying to enjoy it and make the most out of it.
Let's go back a little bit. Take me back to March 11th, March 10th, I should say. It was a Tuesday night. You guys were playing a game at home against Orlando, and then you're readying to travel for a West Coast trip at Portland was that first game. And at this point, when you played that game, I wondered, did you have any idea that it might be your last game? Certainly COVID-19 and the coronavirus are starting to really trickle into discussions and talk, I'm sure. But did you realize that might be the last game for a very long time?
No. Until that, I think it was a Thursday night, whenever March 12th, I think, is whenever it all got postponed. Until that night, I didn't think that it was even a possibility.
Really?
I thought that the only possibility, and it was actually already talked about the Wednesday and Tuesday before, was, hey, after Thursday night's game, the games are almost certainly going to be without fans, right? That was the discussion, and that was kind of like, in my head, worst case scenario. We're going to be in empty gyms playing against each other, and it's going to be really weird. But then we had multiple players test positive, and they were like, nah, we're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
So, it hit us like a ton of bricks.
What was the initial reaction? You said you were shocked, just around, your teammates and trying to walk through this the couple days before. I mean, were you starting to change a little bit in terms of, I don't know, using more hand sanitizer and being more, careful not to maybe sign autographs or high five some of the fans as you're walking in? Did you see any of that starting to change a couple of games before or anything like that?
It did. The last probably 2 or 3 games, especially, the arenas even started making different. They stopped having the media come into the locker room. The fans would always be on the edges of the where you run in and run out. They would have barriers up to where you're not giving high fives and stuff like that. I've always been conscious a little bit about even all the handshaking and stuff like that. I usually do a lot of fist bump.
Yeah.
That was way before all this stuff. And even whenever signing autographs, and this was just for general prevention, flu season and all that stuff, is like, well, if you grab everybody's pin that you're going to sign an autograph for, and you hand it back to them, well, you're, whatever's on their hands is now in your hands, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, I even got to the point where I started getting a marker from the arena staff and use it for everybody, and then hand it back to the one person instead of using everybody else's markers. So all that had already started happening, and more towards the end, and hopefully we can get this thing back started at some point.
Yeah, I hope so too. What's it been like for you during this time, trying to stay in shape, trying to, get shots up? I don't even know. I assume you have a hoop at your house, but maybe you don't. Like, have you been able to kind of do anything basketball related during this time? Because I know a lot of guys have, but some haven't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely blessed, that the house that that we built here, kind of have everything here.
That's
Have
good.
the weights and it's not like a full weight room, but enough to be able to get workouts in. You can kind of see the reflection of that building, the tip of that building. It's actually
Yes.
a basketball gym.
Oh, nice.
So I have a half court indoor gym at my house. So this, once again, is not normal.
Right.
um, so I'm definitely in a better position than a lot of guys right now, because most every gym right now is closed off.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You might be thinking, okay, maybe I'll use this when my kids get a little older and I'm retired and we'll have some fun together. And now it's like, no, this is actually where I need to work out and put this to good use. I want to ask you a question about your faith. On April 1st, you tweeted, "Since we don't know what lies ahead, we must choose to walk in faith and trust in the God that we have come to know. When we remind ourselves of what he has done in the past, we can rest in the present and hope for the future." I thought that was really awesome. How has your walk with Christ helped you during this crazy time being quarantined?
It's given me a base. It's given me something to lean on in the moments where, I try not to ingest too much CNN or any other news outlet.
Yeah.
I do check in pretty much daily to kind of see where it's at, to see if there's any new information that we need to know, so I can be cognitive of it and make sure that we abide by, the best, most useful practices. But other than that, you know, that's, you know, to me, having my relationship with God, and, really being able to focus on my family, and letting them know the reason why they don't see a different person, heading up this family, is because I have faith. I have faith in a God that's bigger than any of this stuff that could ever happen, right? Whether it be a virus or a plague or anything. y- it's scary stuff, but it can be scary, especially for specific types of people with health issues, and if you're older and stuff like that. It's not immune. No one's immune, right? Everybody has the ability to get it and get sick, but as far as that goes, I mean, there's my faith has just allowed me to get through this without really fretting at all.
I assume Anthony Tolliver, and Anthony's joining us here on Sports Spectrum, that faith is also kind of what helps you in the uncertainty of a professional basketball career. Just this year alone, you've been on 3 teams, you were traded, you were released, you were picked up. It's got to be kind of crazy, but you've been in this a while. So I wonder how the faith aspect helps you kind of deal with all the uncertainty and the, potential that you might be somewhere else, tomorrow. Who knows?
Well, the faith is the certainty, right?
Yeah.
Is For me, people who don't have any sort of faith or faith base, I don't know how they get through this environment, and especially for a long time. It is it's brutal. It really it really is,
Yeah.
in a lot of different ways. And don't get me wrong, it's the absolute best job ever. I you know would do it 100 out of 100 times, again and again, in 100 different lives. But what most people see is the positives. They don't ever see the negatives, and there's a lot more negatives than you would ever suspect, that go with this life. But at the same time, like I said, I wouldn't change it. And for me, me having my faith base is everything. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me, just level headed.
Tell us about your faith, the journey to Christ, and kind of where it took shape for you. Maybe share a little bit of your testimony.
Yeah. So I grew up in a home, where single mom, teacher, so didn't have very much money, and but still lived well. But since she was the only breadwinner in the house and was worked to death, uh,
Yeah.
it was one of those things. The weekends she rested, you know, and we didn't really go to church much, but faith was always a part of our upbringing, and always a part of our family. And so, you know, so it was always something that was a part of who we were as a family, but it was never our identity. And I definitely didn't understand the relationship part of it until I got older. But when I got a little bit older, I would go to church with one of my buddies, and he would invite me, and I would go, and you know, got some good-looking girls at his church, so I loved going and
Yep.
hanging out with them. And but no, just one Sunday I was 12 years old, and the pastor was talking about, some things that were really relevant to me at that exact time, and it really helped me to realize, the relationship side, the individual decision side. That's when it all changed for me. And I got saved, gave my life to Christ, and just been rocking with him ever since.
That's really great. I love that story. Walk me through the evolution of being a believer as a basketball player. I talked to a lot of guys, a lot of athletes on this show who played in the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA, and the struggle and identity. You mentioned that word, identity, and finding your identity in Christ, not finding your identity in being an NBA player, which everybody else might identify you as. Can you walk me through that evolution? Has that ever been a push-pull for you, maybe even early coming into the NBA compared to where you are now?
Uh, Not that's never really been a big struggle for me.
That's good.
As far as the identity side, I've never described myself as a basketball player. When someone asks me, "Who are you?" in a general way, like, "Oh, what do you do?" Okay, cool. I play basketball. But I'm also an entrepreneur, so I might even say entrepreneur before I say basketball because it's something I really enjoy. But it's never I've never really had a identity struggle with basketball. It's always been a game. It's been a lot of fun. It's a passion of mine, but it's never been my identity. I've always said if if I'm best known for being a basketball player, whenever it's all said and done, my life was a failure.
Hmm.
That's that's how I look at it, and I've actually thought that way since high school. Early. Just thinking there's way more to this. Now, back in high school, my doesn't mean you can't have goals. It can't mean you can't work towards something within that sport. Of course, I was in high school. I was like, man, got to get a Division I scholarship, and eventually I want to play in the NBA. So I've always had the desire to play in the NBA, but it wasn't because I wanted to be identified as an NBA player. It was because I wanted to have access and the abilities to do the things that I felt like God would want me to do. And I knew that financial freedom would allow me to do that, and also allow me to help build generational wealth for my family and for my kids. At the time, I didn't have kids, but I knew I wanted to have kids. So, so for me, it was all about long term things like that instead of the lifestyle. So.
Well, you've tailored it into a long career, 12 years now in the NBA since 2008. Anthony Tolliver is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. Let me ask you about work as worship. This is a common topic in churches and different ministries, people trying to bring their faith into the workplace, but not obviously push people away from Christ, but, live it out. How have you seen you being an NBA player as sort of ministry in your life?
I mean, that's what it is almost turned into. Pretty much I view, uh, I've been on, I believe now 10 different NBA teams, 10 different locker rooms, which means I've been around roughly, 150 to 200 NBA players ish.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually a lot more than that, because you have guys come in and out, you have two-way guys, you have 10-day guys. So it's way more than that actually. But intimately you're involved with this many people. So, I've always, at the beginning of my career, I was really struggling with all the moving around. I felt like I found a home here, bam, get cut.
Yeah.
And I got to San Antonio, felt like I'm going to be here for a really long time, bam, right? And just kind of over and over. Warriors start playing great, have a great second half of the season, thinking, oh, I'm going to be here for a while. Then they never offer me anything. I'm like,
Hmm.
all right, so then I go somewhere else. I think that's going to be home. Nope, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Go to Phoenix. Signed a 2-year deal. I'm signed the biggest deal of my entire career. Oh, I'm going to be in Phoenix for like at least 2 years, maybe longer. I was there for 3 months. Got traded.
Yeah.
So just having that, the mindset after the first few years was, hey, like I got to take advantage of all these relationships. I'm building all these relationships in all these different locker rooms. So, I might as well take advantage of them, right? Take advantage of these opportunities to affect people for change and to show people Christ. And started Bible studies pretty much on every team I've been on,
That's good.
and everything else. So
Is that hard to do when you're traveling so much and you're away so much to do Bible study, or is that something that you found is very much possible to occur as an NBA player? Because the lifestyle of an NBA player is, I think, unlike a lot of other any other pro sport, really, because you're back and forth and you're traveling back to back nights. Who knows what that's like? Is that difficult, or have you found a kind of a nice rhythm for that?
it's definitely difficult. That's actually the hardest part is finding the time. And when you're trying to lead Bible studies and stuff like that, it's like that's the like I kind of understand if in the past if other guys had tried to do it, it becomes work. Trying to decipher when makes sense and everything else because you have to be smart about it, right? All right. Well, if you guys travel to Miami and you get there at noon and you have the rest of the day off, do you think that people are going to show up to Bible study? Probably not.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like they're going to be going to the beach or they're going to go out to eat or they're going to be out. Like you're in New York or certain cities, you're probably, most guys are going to have stuff to do, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in Milwaukee on a Tuesday night, or you land there at 4 o'clock and you guys don't have any team meetings or anything like that, you can probably get one done at 5 o'clock, right? So it's just it's always kind of a moving target. And you have to almost be flexible in the sense of like, you can plan it ahead, but just know like it could change and then, you just have to be able to like manage time really well and know what's gonna work. So
Yeah.
over time I've gotten better at it. It just makes it difficult. So, each year I don't get like 6 to 12, Bible studies, and there might be 4 to 6, right?
Yeah.
Over the course of the season, which doesn't sound like a ton, but it they end up being pretty powerful things. And guys really, the very first one I did in Charlotte, I thought it was going to be 1 or 2 guys. It was 9, so it was almost the entire team
Wow.
that showed up. So
That's
you never
cool.
know. You never know what God's going to do whenever you're just trying to be obedient.
Last couple questions here with Anthony Tolliver here on Sports Spectrum. This has been a crazy year in the NBA, not just from what's happening with COVID-19, but with Kobe's passing, obviously. You've been in the league a while. You came in 2008, so you had opportunities to play against him. I'm wondering if you might share a fun Kobe story for us, or maybe it's not fun, but just something that comes to mind, maybe that we could understand kind of what it was like to be around him and play against him.
Well, I'll tell you one story that's really, really cool for me is with Kobe. I was always actually, growing up and watching, the NBA and everything else. There was always this thing with Kobe versus Jordan, right? Okay, cool. Well, of course,
Yeah.
Kobe was like, Michael Jordan light, I would call it, right? Is about as close as you can get, but not quite there.
Yep.
But then, next generation became Kobe versus LeBron. And I was always a LeBron guy. I was always like, well, even though I like Jordan better than Kobe, I like LeBron better than I like Kobe.
Right.
Um, and I've always found myself, almost like going against Kobe, right? Like, but I've always had this massive amount of respect for the player he is and how good he truly was. Um, and so my oh my gosh, I made it to the NBA moment was when I played against Kobe. When we played against Kobe with the Warriors, I played against the Lakers that year. They won the championship,
Yep.
um, but started. It was like on TNT or something, and you kind of about to do jump ball, and everybody kind of gives everybody a handshake. Or that's when I was like, wow, I'd played multiple games before that in the NBA, but that was the moment where I was like, I'm in the NBA. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Because I was shaking Kobe Bryant's hand. All these other people I played against, okay, cool. It's awesome. But it was Kobe Bryant, and that was kind of my moment, so that's kind of my Kobe story. It's just, he was iconic. Still
Yeah.
is to this day, just one of the best players to ever do it.
Did you see his passing as an opportunity to show point people to Christ, I guess. I thought there was more conversations about faith after Kobe's death, just in my little circle of buddies who are sports fans, than maybe ever.
Yeah.
Did you see that inside the NBA circles of being able to have conversations about faith?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was just like a robust amount more, but I
Sure.
definitely think that that was something that was prevalent, and it just made people realize, everybody, especially basketball players and athletes, are like, man, like I'm. Sometimes people feel like they're invincible,
Yeah.
and he was like the epitome of that. Like he was Superman in a lot of different ways, right? Absolutely crushing it off the court. Making tons of money. Winning Oscars. Like he looked like he was on top of the world,
Yep.
even after basketball. And then in the blink of an eye, he's gone. And so, getting people to realize it's like that can be any of us at any given moment. So it's I think it got a lot of people's attention. And as soon as I heard that the news, that was one of the first things I thought is that, man, I hope and pray that that ends up bringing more and more people to the forefront of, hey, I don't know what's gonna happen in life. I just hope that I can get right with Christ and be able to move forward.
Yeah, that's good. Last question. Thanks so much for your time, Anthony. You've been so generous. We ask this question to all of our guests here on Sports Spectrum. What's God been teaching you right now? What's he been showing you? What's the great lesson? Maybe it's something that he showed you over a period of time. Maybe it's just today in your devotional time or whatever, your quiet time. But what's the Lord teaching you right now?
Um, I would say the biggest thing he's teaching me is uh, keeping things in perspective. I mean, especially through this COVID situation, keeping things in perspective of like what's really important. I think I've always kind of had a decent view of that, like what's really important. My family, because your family is your first ministry, right? So my family is to me the most important part of my life.
Yeah.
Sometimes with so many distractions around us, it's even though we're not consciously necessarily thinking that, our actions speak differently, right? So work, worshiping work, right? Worshiping or idolizing work, idolizing sports, idolizing. I mean, there's so many different things that we as Americans, as people, idolize and worship. Um, so through this COVID season, I really feel like this is, an opportunity. And what God has revealed to me is just like, yo, like refocus, refocus on what's important, and continue to, be good, be great at what you do, be, all that different stuff. But just realize that the stuff that's really important to you, that should be really important to you, has always been right in front of you. And so, whether that be, just dedicating more time to my family and different stuff like that in the
Yeah.
future, and last thing I'll hit you with this is, in the oh, here's one of my kids right here.
She can join
Is
us.
this is if you come out of this season the same as that person as you were at the beginning,
Yeah.
you wasted this opportunity, right? Being better educationally, being better as a basketball player, being in better shape, whatever it may be, or being a better husband, father. If you're not better at these things, or some of these things that get revealed to you at the end of this, you've wasted this opportunity, because this is a prime time to work on whatever God's revealing to you.
That's really good. He is Anthony Tolliver, Memphis Grizzlies basketball player. Hopefully we have basketball. Does your gut think we're going to have, this season somehow played out? I hope so.
Yeah, I don't know about all of it.
Yeah, but
I
something
think
at
that
least.
I think there's a I think there's a pretty good chance of playoffs happening. I
Okay.
think there's a little bit of a chance of some more of the season happening. And I would say there's a very slim chance that all of the rest of the season happens, right?
Yeah.
So that, I think, kind of goes in that order right there. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. Anthony, this has been great, brother. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate your heart for Christ and certainly coming on to the show and sharing your journey. All the best to you.
thank you.